Good evening, everybody. My name is Paul Pearson. Jackie could not be with us this evening. She's currently flying back from Ecuador, a conference, anti-corruption conference. It's about 7:03. We're going to go ahead and start. Again, my name is Paul Pearson. I'm on the board of Whistleblowers of America. I also help produce and promote a lot of these videos and our programs. This evening, I'm going to be joined by Aisha. She is she works at AARP, and her presentation will be focused on the evolution of scams, and she'll have some information data from AARP. I'll also be chiming in. As some of you may or may not know, I do a lot of work when it comes to fraud and fraud awareness on the cyber realm. But I will pass it over to Aisha to give her introduction.
Great. Thanks so much, Paul. I appreciate you having me. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Dr. Aisha Van Cozad, and I'm a senior research manager with AARP. I look forward to facilitating tonight's conversation about fraud prevention and AARP's Fraud Watch network. Oh, and I should maybe share my slides. How about that?
Good. Awesome. Oh, really quick before we start, I just want to go over a little bit of housekeeping. As you may or may not know, we have a conference coming up in September. I will share the link in chat. It'll be in Boston, Arlington this year. So yeah, don't forget to get your tickets. We'll have both virtual and in person available. But go ahead, Aisha.
Great. Thanks, Paul. All right, there we go. My goal today as your facilitator is to present valuable information to help you recognize and avoid fraud. However, as an AARP staff member, I have had training on fraud, and I do have some great material, but I'm not an expert. I'm going to be attentive to moving the conversation along to ensure we're respectful of your schedule and end on time. Scammers steal billions of dollars from unsuspecting consumers every year. The impact on victims and their families can be financially and emotionally devastating, especially for older Americans. AARP created the Fraud Watch Network to empower consumers to spot and avoid scams and to provide support and guidance to victims and their families when fraud happens. In addition to attending sessions like this today, you can find a wealth of resources at aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork. Some of you might be asking, why is AARP engaged in this? Well, you might know that AARP began 60 years ago when its founder, retired school principal, Dr. Ethel Percy Andrus, discovered one of her former teachers living in a chicken coop. She was appalled that a woman who worked her whole life couldn't even afford a place to live. She founded AARP to protect the financial security of older Americans. Fighting identity theft and fraud is part of that core mission. To help you protect yourself and your loved ones today, we're going to look at fraud trends, understanding how much fraud is out there and what it looks like, how we react to fraud. We'll explore how scammers attempt to trigger us and how we can prevent that from happening. Prevention, knowing and practicing prevention strategies to avoid becoming a target. And I'll follow up with some great resources you can easily access and share with those you know and love. So how many of you think you have been approached with a fraudulent offer? I know I have. I would imagine it's probably everybody in the room at some point, at some time. How many of you know someone who's been a victim of identity theft and fraud? Now, this should be everybody. And that's how, interestingly enough, that's how it works in the research. When we ask people how many have personally been impacted, it's a fairly small number, somewhere between 20 and 40%. Depending on the day. But when we ask people, do they know someone who's been defrauded? Almost everybody raises their hand. which tells us that the incidence of fraud is actually much higher than anything that is publicly reported. So the first thing to know is you're not alone. And that's really important because people feeling isolated on this issue is what keeps them from reporting. So what is the impact of fraud on older adults? And just quiet as it's kept, it's the same impact on everybody. It doesn't really matter how old you are, but we're AARP, so that's our focus. First, let's talk about fraud in a broader context. We define fraud to be an action taken with the intent to deceive for monetary gain. But we find that the terms fraud and elder financial exploitation are often used interchangeably. It's important to understand that elder financial exploitation is broadly any form of financial exploitation against older adults, and the perpetrator can be someone the victim trusts, or it could be a stranger. Examples of elder financial exploitation include embezzling, falsifying records, coerced property transfers, and denying the victim access to their own assets. Examples of fraud are imposter scams, romance scams, lottery scams, and scams that result in identity fraud, to name a few. We know that our consumer outreach work and our own research that most people believe that scams only really happen to older adults. The reality is that younger adults report losing money to fraud more than older adults. A reminder that scammers know no bounds and target everyone. One recent example is the recent wave of DMV-related scams. Texts saying you have unpaid tickets or tolls and your license will be suspended. That scam is targeting people of all ages, and you can be assured that in most families, the grandparents, parents, and grandchildren have all gotten it. When it comes to just how much money is stolen each year to fraud, and the reality is we just don't know what we don't know. Fraud is severely underreported. Shame and embarrassment is a big reason, and we'll talk about that later in this session. Also problematic is the lack of centralized reporting, of course. When we do see the reports that we have, there is a lot of difference between the sources. The Federal Trade Commission says reported losses in 2024 amounted to $12.5 billion, but the FBI saw $16.6 billion just in cybercrime in 2024, up 33% from the year before. And then if you look at the FTC report that just came out in October 2024 and went to Congress for the second year, the FTC readily acknowledges that the underreporting problem. They actually applied their estimate of underreporting so that the $10.3 billion reported as stolen through fraud in 2023 was actually more likely $158.3 billion. We don't know what the 2024 equivalent is yet. And when you break that down to look at the impact on older adults, their extrapolation is $61.5 billion in elder fraud alone. Now, we've talked about the bigger picture. Let's discuss some of the most frequently reported scams. Tech support is calling, but should you answer? One might think that a crime like the tech support scam, which has been around for over 15 years, might fade away, but it is more common than ever. These scams start with an unsolicited phone call or a pop-up alert on your device claiming to be from Microsoft, Norton, or another related company warning of grave problems. The goal is to persuade you to grant remote access to your device, after which they'll claim to find something terrible. In reality, these criminals are likely trying to install malware, which enables them to steal personal information and account logins. They may also pressure you into paying for expensive and fake repairs or protection services. If you receive an urgent phone call or a sudden alarming pop-up, it is almost certainly a scam. Do not engage, and to rid your screen of the message, exit out of your browser or restart your device. Keeping your operating systems and security software up to date is an important way to help keep real viruses and malware out. And just so we can get into the habit of just calling these things out, I have been a victim of this actual scam. They got me about 10 years ago. And I had been on the phone with them and let them remote into my computer. I was on the phone for about an hour before I finally picked up on what they were trying to do. Luckily, I escaped without them being able to upload their things or get me to pay money. But yeah, it was pretty embarrassing to realize I had been taken or almost taken. The number of financial grooming scams continues to surge. This scam originated in Cambodia, but it is spreading around Asia like wildfire. Tragically, it involves human trafficking. The criminal enterprise lures people with great job opportunities and enslaves them, forcing them to be the front line of their fraud attempts. Senders of the accidental text message, for example, they are threatened with violence against them and their families. The targets in the US have lost billions of dollars to this crime. It involves a fake crypto trading platform, small investments with strong returns, leading to larger investment with great returns, and so on. When the unknowing victim tries to withdraw their earnings, they find they can't, and their friend disappears. Note, this is called pig butchering. We do not use that term, but you may hear others using it. There are some ways you can stay safe. Be wary of unsolicited messages and delete them without responding. Research any investment opportunities. Report the scam. If you do fall victim, report it right away to your financial institution and law enforcement. We have heard some stories of situations where they were able to stop the payments, though it is rare. Artificial intelligence refers to the ability of machines, such as computers or robots, to perform human tasks. AI has been around for a very long time in the form of predictive artificial intelligence. Predictive AI, as the name suggests, focuses on making predictions based on existing data. For example, when you use your navigation app to find the fastest route to your destination, the app uses predictive AI to analyze traffic patterns and provide you with an estimated arrival time. Essentially, predictive AI looks at historical data to forecast future outcomes. On the other hand, generative AI is all about creating new content or data. Imagine a program that can write a story, compose music, or even generate realistic images of people who don't exist. That's generative AI at work. It uses complex algorithms to generate new original content based on the patterns it has learned from existing data. Scientists have been programming computers to think and predict for decades, but only in recent years has the technology gotten to the level at which a computer can effectively mimic human voices, movement, and writing style, and more challengingly, predict what a person might say or do next. The public release of tools such as OpenAI's ChatGPT, DALL-E, Google's Gemini, Microsoft's Copilot, and other readily available generative AI programs brought some of these capabilities to the masses, easily weaponized by criminals to create realistic yet bogus voices, websites, videos, and other content to perpetrate fraud. Many fear the worst is yet to come. It is important to understand that AI scams are just the same old scams. They just use AI tools to seem more realistic. So while an AI-powered version of a tech scam might feel more realistic or more exciting or scary, the things we do don't change. Now, let's focus on some scams that have been very popular this month. You receive an unexpected communication from the Social Security Administration. It might warn that your Social Security number has been linked to criminal activity and suspended, or it could offer good news, such as a supposed benefit increase. Regardless of the story, the goal is the same: to steal sensitive information or money. Most scams come to us with 3 common red flags: a contact from out of the blue that heightens our emotions and contains urgency. When you notice these 3 red flags together, take what AARP calls an active pause. Take an intentional step back and reflect on what you might know about the scenario. Does this make sense? Have I heard something about this before? This pause gives you time to apply logic, something the criminal playbook is written to avoid, and protect yourself and your assets. If someone contacts you saying they represent the Social Security Administration, call the agency directly at 800-772-1213 or visit ssa.gov/my-account instead of responding directly to the communication. If you shared your Social Security number and believe it was part of a scam, go to idtheft.gov for step-by-step guidance. Learn how to spot and avoid scams with AARP's Fraud Watch Network. Suspect a scam? You can call our free helpline at 877-908-3360 and talk to one of our fraud specialists about what to do next. The AARP Fraud Watch Network helpline is hearing from more people about misleading free trial offers. These scams make cancellation difficult, if not absolutely impossible. In many cases, someone signs up for what appears to be a free trial and then cancels before having to pay for the subscription. However, the charges continue to appear each month and the companies make it hard to cancel them. Before you sign up for a free trial offer, review all terms and conditions to understand exactly what you're agreeing to, how and when to cancel, and what happens if you don't. Also, review your bank and credit card statements carefully and watch for recurring charges you didn't authorize, even after you've canceled. Again, you can always call our free helpline if you need additional help. This particular scam, this is sort of a free hack. If you are seeing recurring charges on your credit cards that you can't identify, call your bank, ask them to issue you a new card with a new number. Anything that is pulling from that old number, as soon as that card is cut off from your bank, all of those subscriptions will drop and they will have no way to gain access to your new banking information. Now, that's kind of a scorched earth situation, but if it's bad enough, it might be a good solution. After the loss of a loved one, families deserve support, not scams. Unfortunately, criminals comb through obituaries, funeral home websites, and online memorials to find names and personal details they can use to target families. And I just want to add this here. If you do any of that, or using an online memorial or like a food train kind of situation, don't make those things public. Send them directly to the people you want to respond. If you make them public, anybody in the world can access those things and do just the kind of scams that we've been talking about. Some of these bereavement scams include impersonating the funeral home or cemetery about payment issues, appearing as a long-lost relative promising healing through spiritual advisors, and identity fraud against the deceased loved one. In the wake of a loved one's death, consider the public nature of an obituary and online memorials, and limit information that could be used to deceive you. If the funeral home calls demanding money, hang up and call them back at a number you know to be legitimate. And if a long-lost relative or friend reaches out, ask other family members or longtime friends if they know the person. Next, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the psychological tactics that criminals use to take advantage of people and what you can do to counteract that. The goal in scam operations is to get the target into a heightened emotional state, what scammers themselves have referred to as getting them under the ether. Tactics include instilling fear or excitement or even the need for a personal connection. Once there, it's very hard to access logical thinking, and the scammer succeeds. You see, the criminal is using our own thought processes and emotions against us. They are good at that, and the way our brains work when emotion takes over makes us all susceptible. The majority of scams come at us with three common elements. A computer pop-up warning of a virus along with a siren-like sound. It causes a high emotional reaction. Mikey's in trouble and it's up to me to save him. I'm going to lose all my data. I can't stop that sound. It involves urgency. Send money to help Mikey and call this number right away to address the virus. These three warning signs apply to a wide range of scams and are easier to remember than trying to keep up with all the latest schemes and their own set of red flags. Taken together, these elements form a trigger for a safe response. Many of us learned as children that if our clothing caught fire, the trigger, our response should be to stop, drop, and roll. The safe response for scams is to take an active pause. That allows us to move away from an emotional response and engage with logic. Pause, disengage from the call, email, text is the most important step you can take. Reflect. Once you have pressed the pause button, then you have an opportunity to review what you've been told. Does it seem like a scam? Are they asking you to do something you wouldn't normally do, like get gift cards or send crypto? Can you verify the information independently? Once you've removed yourself from the conversation, this can help us recognize the scam and protect our money and sensitive information. So we know how criminals will approach us and what they will ask for and why their appeals are so successful. Now we're going to talk about how you can make yourself a harder target to reach. So we've identified through our research 5 protective actions. Number 1, get better passwords. I know it's a pain. Nobody wants to do it, but your passwords should be long. They should be complicated. They should be passphrases. Those are actually better than even a password. There are tons of password apps out there. If you have an Apple device, it has a password app embedded as one of the native apps. I'm pretty sure Android does too. But there's also 1Password, Dashlane, Bitwarden, Sharper Image sells, actually it's a small device, so it's not connected to your computer or your phone or anything, but it is a password keeper. Like there are many options out there if you don't want to have to keep all of them in your head. Some of them have limited free tiers, and most of them have subscription options. Make sure that you are using multi-factor authentication. That means if you have a password for an account, you should also have a secondary way to say, no, it's really me. It could be a passcode, a passphrase, it could be facial recognition, it could be a fingerprint, it can be an actual dongle that holds like a security key, like in a USB kind of situation. That one's one, my husband uses it in his security work, so I don't know as much about that one, but you need to have a secondary way to access your accounts in case your password is compromised. Make sure that you are reviewing your credit report and using credit freezes. It's something that you can request. You can go to annualcreditreport.com. Now you can view your free credit report online every week if you want. Or you can get one free copy per year from each of the 3 main credit agencies, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. You can get contact information at annualcreditreport.com for these agencies to freeze your credit. So if you know something's going on, you can freeze your own lines of credit to stop them from continuing to defraud you. We all get a lot of robocalls and spam and scam texts, but there are ways to reduce the volume. Check with your phone carrier for ways they can help block or flag suspicious calls. You can make a small investment in call and text blocking apps as well. The only one I know of that works on landlines is called Nomorobo, Nomorobo. That's the only one I know of right now that works on landlines, but there are lots of mobile apps. RoboKiller, Haya, and Truecaller are just to name a few. There are lots of other protective actions. I'm not going to go through this whole list, but shred all of your sensitive documents. Better yet, save a tree and take all of your reporting from your bills and stuff and have that all come to you online instead of having printed copies coming through the mail. Let's see. Only send money via person to person to people or businesses you know. If you don't know, if you've never had a relationship with somebody or some company, don't send money to them online for the first time. Make sure you meet them, see them, go to a brick and mortar space. Make sure your home Wi-Fi router comes with a default password. I mean, it comes with one. Change it. Don't keep the default password. Some companies have the same default passwords for like multiple types of units. It's so weird. Anyway, change your password for sure. Paul, have I hit my time limit?
Yeah, you're starting to get really close to that. We're at 7:30 right now. But
Okay.
I just wanted to add really quick that on a technical level, like the automatic passwords that they give, whether it's a router, what device it might be, there are algorithms and ways for people to figure out what your password is, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Based
So
off of
change
like
those.
your model number and your serial number or
Yep.
some other identifying factor.
Yes, absolutely. And back up your data. Always, always, always. Back it up to a cloud or an external service or an external drive. All of those are good options. The AARP Fraud Watch Network is a great resource to keep you up to date on the latest scams. You can visit us at aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network for news and information. You can sign up for our scam alerts that come out every month and keep you up to date on the newest scams. And you can tune into our hit podcast called The Perfect Scam. It's actually really good. It's an award-winning show that takes you into the inner workings of scams and how they work. If you want to report a scam, get a second opinion if you suspect fraud, or for help if you or a loved one have fallen victim to a scam, we invite you to call our free helpline, and you can connect with trained fraud specialists. It's free. It's open to the public. You don't have to be a member to call the hotline. And you don't have to be of a certain age. You don't have to be a member or part of our organization. Anybody can call. In addition to the helpline, we offer online fraud victim support group sessions via Zoom to help people begin to heal from the emotional impact of fraud. Sessions are open to anyone across the country of any age to speak about their own personal fraud experience or what they are experiencing as a loved one supporting a fraud victim. And you do not have to be a member. So you can check all of this out on our website, and that information is here. I just want to also tell you about, we do have a tool. It's actually called Ask AARP now. This was an earlier version. I should have updated this slide. But this is a tool where you can put any question into the engine here, and it will give you a great answer. It's really, really helpful. I've used it. I've actually used it myself. So to use this tool, you do need to have a login to our website, but you still don't need to be a member. So that's totally up to you. So I hope you've gotten some good information today about the kinds of scams that are going on and ways you can protect yourself. We reviewed trends in scams and fraud. We talked about changing the narrative and why words matter. We discussed common persuasion tactics that scammers use, and we provided tips and resources so you can protect yourself. I want to remind you that AARP has additional resources you can turn to at our Fraud Watch network. Thank you so much. And you can text PROTECT to 50757 or scan this QR code to get a link to access fraud prevention resources. Thank you so much. And I'm happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm going to open it up to questions here in a second. There was a couple of slides that I wanted to show you that kind of piggyback off of what Aisha was talking about. Just 2 more slides. Don't worry, it's nothing crazy. And I also wanted to put a link in for the FBI's website to file complaints on these kinds of things. But these are also just kind of like better show you like how crazy the issue is. Let me share my screen. So I do a similar watch, and you were essentially announcing the numbers that I talk about. But in 2023, as Americans, we lost 12.5 billion, which is up 21% from the previous year. I live in Virginia, and I generally give talks in Virginia. And so this is a breakdown on about how much Virginians lose. Each state has like their own, most popular scams, if you will. 2024, we did also really even worse. We went up 33% in losses. And same in Virginia, they were up 20%. And then as we were doing this, I was actually looking at the FBI's website, and they did update it for 2025. So I just put these numbers in just right now. But again, we're doing worse every year. Now we're at 20.8 billion in losses for 2025. Oh wait, there's one more slide. So this is kind of like a breakdown of, there's altogether, I think, 27 different categories of scams. Investment, BEC, which is business email compromise. That's essentially when this is more for companies, but this is when an attacker gets access to your Google Workspace admin console or your Microsoft 365 admin console, and then they're able to intercept and redirect payments. That scam has become all the rage in the past 5 years. Tech support scams and romance scams, these are generally all in the top 5, no matter what state you're in. And then this kind of just gives you another breakdown of how it's affected by age group. This is also still in Virginia. So it's a breakdown in 2024 of losses by age group. And you'll see people over 60 get hit the hardest, just generally because they have the most money. And then one other thing I wanted to show was this is straight from the website. This is the 2025 IC3 report from the FBI's website, and you can see they have numbers going back to 2011. They've been doing these reports, but as you see in 2021, it was just 17.8 million, but it's risen dramatically, really since COVID, where we're at 20.8 billion, and probably be on track to be about 20, 30, or 30 billion by next year. But yeah, it's becoming a huge problem, especially in the nonprofit industry. Let's see. Now let me open it up to questions. Did anybody have questions they wanted to ask in chat? I'm going to take people off of mute here in a second. All right. People should be able to turn on their microphones and their cameras if they want to ask a question. I guess just raise your hand if you wanted to ask a question, share a story, or make an additional point. Robert, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm just looking for my little raised hand thing. You clapping hands. Okay, I mean, I got all kinds of crazy stuff here, you know. I don't know.
You
Okay,
go
but
ahead,
anyway,
go.
let's pretend I found the raised hand. Okay. Yeah, so, you know, it's amazing what kind of people, anybody can get preyed upon by these fraudsters. I myself am a certified fraud examiner. And either maybe because of that, I'm more sensitive and
Mm.
I feel inundated by frauds. I'm right as today, I'm filing a a complaint to the Delaware Department of Justice about a muffler shop that brazenly defrauded me on a catalytic converter. I mean, it's crazy stuff. And, you know, I guess they made a mistake. And so I sued them with nice questions and so on. And I looked at all the documentation. So anyway, and they're just sitting tight. And you get this all the time. And, you know, most people wouldn't be aware of it. They would have lost into the gross overcharges, and they didn't do what they said. They didn't put the device in they said they were going to do, and it was just a straight up fraud. And so, you know, you sometimes don't even know you're being defrauded. Um, and it goes to even more sophisticated. You talked about the text messages. Um, it can be so bad. At the end of last year, I lost a router, I lost a cell phone because of so much uh, damage to my systems, which I didn't really have full defenses on, that it can cost a lot of wasted time from one of those. Now, it's not that I clicked a link in a message, which is mostly, I think, what you were talking about, Dr. Van Cozad. I mean, that's the main thing. I didn't do anything stupid like that. But there are more sophisticated attacks. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because this is a whistleblowers group. And as whistleblowers, we tend to come up often, you'll hear a higher level of attack, unfortunately, more focused, more directed by, usually it's defense firms that are hired, and they go out and hire hackers. And so it's a more targeted thing. It's not necessarily these broad-based things you're talking about where they're hiring people to just do like 10,000 texts and stuff like that. So we can get much more targeted. Those of us, not just the whistleblower, but the whistleblower attorneys used to be pretty unsophisticated about their email protections and other things. And so there's a whole subset here that, particular to this group, that can get really troublesome as well. So those are my two immediate thoughts about, you know, fraud is really a serious problem, definitely in this country.
It is. It is. And honestly, it's sort of a zero-sum game, because even with all of the things that you can do to protect yourself, I've got Norton installed on every electronic device. We have changed the passwords on our routers. We don't let strangers access our home network. Like, we've got a separate network that strangers can access that keeps them out of our pathway. You know, I do all of my, we have a locked mailbox because somebody, oh, this was a crazy scam. I had no idea. Somebody started sending packages to our house. And I realized what they were hoping was that I was going to put those packages back in the mailbox to send them back to the post office, because they obviously didn't belong to me. And then they would just pull up in front of our house and open our mailbox and take those packages out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what they were doing is that they were buying stuff, sending it to my house under a different name. And then when I would go to return it, they would take it. And then I don't know what it was, but I ended up having to get a locked mailbox. You can do everything right, and you can buy all of the defenses, and you can still get got. The key is to be vigilant, always be thinking about different ways, taking that minute to take a step back, because once they get your emotions going, it is very hard to think clearly. It's almost impossible, especially when they do stuff, you know, your kid calling in the middle of the night, somebody calling saying somebody's in the hospital. Like, they sometimes do these things that just, and you go from 0 to 10, and at that point you're done. You are not thinking, you are not processing, you are just running on emotion. If you find yourself in that state, you have got to ease your cognitive load. You have got to bend over, sit down, take a deep, do something that stops you in the moment from just continuing. And then talk to somebody, phone a friend. I mean, honestly, you just got to get some perspective, because they're very good and they are utilizing every psychological tactic to keep you on edge so that you can't think.
Absolutely. And it reminds me, you're saying this, they try to scam against my late mother now, but she was in her 80s at the time, mid to late 80s. And they called up and they were somehow able to obtain information, I don't know, from emails or something that leaked out, where they were able to know what my younger son called his grandmother, my mother. Okay, like a nickname. So it was very concerning to her, and said, oh, they're in prison. They were arrested for a traffic, blah, blah, blah violation. And you got to send this money. And we eventually tracked this to some guys in a prison who were working as a scam in San Diego. But anyway, so they go this to her, and she had the presence of mind. She was really concerned because they wanted thousands of dollars immediately, or such and such would happen. So she calls me up in the middle of the day. She's very concerned, but had the presence of mind not to give them all the financial information they wanted. And while I'm talking to her, I'm saying, this really sounds completely wrong. Doorbell rings. I go open the door, and there's my son and his friend, Austin. I said, well, that's funny, Mom, because they're like standing right in front of me right here. But it really, you know what I mean? But it really, as you said, you got to pump the brakes immediately. Just take a breath and be careful, because they are able to somehow, what was shocking is how they got that information. They're brazen too, because I called them up, I hunted them down. So I tracked them down. I called the FBI and all that crap. We didn't do anything, but the other agencies helped. So like I said, they were actually themselves they were like, it was like a prison. One of the guys involved was in a prison working as a guard. Okay. And it's amazing because he was involved with the gang, and they would call up. They knew our number. They were threatening my mother. I can't even repeat on here what they were saying. It was so outlandish and outrageous, because I think they were in a foreign country at that south of the border. So anyway, it's very troubling.
Wow. That is very distressing.
Yeah. I think 100% of the time when somebody has been scammed, they've been in an emotional state every time I've talked to them.
I mean, that's the key. That's the absolute key. And they know this, right? I mean, psychologists have done a good job of helping to define different states that humans exist in. And once you get us emotional, that left brain just shuts down, just goes to sleep, night, night. And you are running on emotion, and that's what they're counting on. Once they get you there, you're very defenseless at that point. You're very vulnerable at that point. So
one thing that I want to know is that there have been a lot of technical achievements in the world of scams. For instance, like one example is like their ability to deepfake, right? But that's been you can overcome that pretty easily by just asking them to put their hand over their face, right?
Right.
But then also, when it comes to the phone number, they can actually call you from.
Can we just hang on 1 second? Does everybody know what that is? The hand over the face? Do you know why that gets rid of deepfakes? Sienna, do you know? Do you want to tell us, or you're curious?
Well, I caught a guy once.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Paul. So one thing that AI has trouble doing is making fingers. If you ask AI to draw you a picture of a human being, they can do a great face, great body, but something about the human hand is very difficult for AI to do properly. So you'll get hands that look like this with extra fingers, or not enough fingers, or fingers in weird shapes. So if you ask it to do this, you will either see that there's something wrong with the hand, or you'll see that it can't actually do the motion and make it look human. I mean, you guys know that I'm doing this, right? Because you can see my shoulder move you see my elbow move, the AI is not going to move like this. It will seem wrong. And that's how you know. Okay, sorry, Paul. I just want to make sure people knew why you said that, because
yeah, no worries. And it also like will take out the face filters as well sometimes too. But then also two other things. One was they're able to call you from your bank's number or from organization number, and I'm just like, this is something more recent that they've been able to do within the past year. But I don't know how the regulation with the phone numbers work for spoofing. I'm not sure if it's a lack thereof regulation, or if these organizations somehow got a hold of some kind of technology that allowed them to do this. Either way, it makes it extremely difficult to spot out scams if it's coming from your actual bank's number. And then three has been, and this has been more for more VIPs or people with, like the head of an organization or who has lots of money confirmed, is that they can pull that that phone number. You know how like with two-factor authentication, generally like it'll ask you, oh, can you verify this text message, right? They can intercept that text message now. Certain APT or certain hacker groups have been able to, this by maybe like a year and a half ago, they started doing it, but they've proven that they can get access to our back-end telecommunication system, which allows them to fish for these authentication numbers.
So spoofing is illegal if you are spoofing with the intent to defraud. So if your purpose in hiding your real phone number, and that comes from the Truth in Caller ID Act of 2009. If you're calling and your intent is to defraud, that spoofing is illegal. But if you just want to call somebody and pretend you're calling from somebody they should know, as long as you don't try to get something from them or hurt them or be deceptive other than lying about where you're calling from, that is not illegal. I mean, how does that even make any sense?
Yeah, but so did something happen recently with the laws that allowed scam companies to get away with this?
No, it is just illegal. The problem is that enforcement is so difficult, and we have given enforcement very little teeth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I've never understood why they can't shut down these call centers.
A lot of them are overseas and we don't have the,
Why can't we stop them from accessing our telecommunications? Why can't we keep them from calling into our telecommunication systems?
So another thing that I have learned is that a lot of the fraud companies, they have a foot in with companies in the United States, right? So, for instance, New Jersey has a very loose registered agent law. So, like a company in India, for instance, or some other country overseas, I'm just using India as an example. Not all scams come from India. But I'm just using India as an example. Like somebody can, have a company in India and then create like a foothold in the United States that's with a registered agent. So that way that company is now considered an American company. There's also been some other website companies. It's a subsidiary of GoDaddy. It's called Domains by Proxy. They host a lot of websites from fraudulent companies, but yeah, they're currently under so many different lawsuits. I'm not sure how or why. My assumption is they're getting kickbacks from these companies by hosting their platforms in the States. Yeah.
Oh, that is such you are so right. That is a very troubling thing. I was involved in a case last year, and this is with the biggest of companies, Apple, Goldman Sachs. If you can believe this story, you'll just go to what Paul said, how that making money will get even with the gold-plated companies to just look the other way and make bad decisions. So, for example, in this case, there was, you talked about how credit card scams would work, where you get this offer, a deal, and then they don't shut it off, and you call it a credit card company. In this case, it was Apple, Goldman Sachs, and say, hey, and they say, okay, we have to just cancel your credit card. We're going to issue a new number. And the next thing you know, it keeps happening. And the cycle continues. They somehow are getting the new number and they keep charging. It's like, what is going on? So now I'm in the middle of an investigation. Like, how can this possibly be true? And eventually, with great effort, you realize there was a new feature introduced maybe in 2024, 2025, whereby the vendor could pay to maintain a link to the new update, automatically update the credit card number. Okay, so basically, and I'm like, how could you possibly allow that? That's clearly a fraud loophole. It's outrageous. So I'm here, you know, chewing on Apple, and it's just ridiculous. It's embarrassing. So yes, that lure of money is remarkable. What companies will do.
Yeah,
it is.
But the fraudster is basically paying them. The fraudster is the client, actually, in that case.
I buy that. I absolutely buy that they are taking them on as customers, because that then gives them cover to say, we're just helping our customer. Like, it's not our fault that our customer is engaged in dubious activities.
That is exactly what they said. That is exactly right.
That's
It's outrageous.
Look, capitalism.
I call it fraud facilitation. Now, you should know that's not reasonable. Once it's canceled, you have to have a mechanism that says this guy for fraud. So if the customer calls up the bank or whatever it may be and says, look, this is clearly fraudulent, and they agree, and so they're issuing a refund, now when they start recharging it, there should be a mechanism that says, no, you can't do that. We don't care that you paid to be able to get the new credit card number. We canceled it for a reason. That's, you know, it's crazy. It's obvious.
Yeah.
It's
just like the movie Beekeeper. You know, these companies, some of these American companies are getting paid to, I'm certain of it, they are getting paid to allow this fraud. What do you call it? Fraud facilitators?
Yeah, they are fraud facilitators.
I like that term.
You guys are fraud facilitators right here. What are you kidding? And then, you know, and some engineer comes in and he says, you know, I feel embarrassed. I would, embarrassed at the very least. You should be embarrassed. It's ridiculous. You know.
So here's my one good fraud story. So you guys remember when you used to be able to go out to the mall and they'd have a car in the center of the, you know, walkway, and if you signed up, you could be in a raffle for that car, right? Well, like a dodo, I filled out one of those things. I didn't know, I did not read the fine print, and as a result, I ended up with a magazine subscription. So this was before the credit card stuff changed. And so at some point when I lost a credit card and got a new one, I no longer got charged for those magazines, but they have not stopped coming for 20 years. I have 5 magazines that have been coming to my house for 20 years. I have called repeatedly. I don't pay for them. They are just giving them to me for free, and I cannot make them stop. All right, somebody had a question.
Yes, Selene. I'm sorry, I keep butchering it.
That's okay, Paul. So this is a very good conversation, and FYI, like whenever I order even like pizza, right? I don't give my name. Like, I just make a pseudonym, and my husband just laughs, right? He's like, why are you afraid of the chicken wing man? And this or he's like, God, what name did you give him? They can't find the order. But just, you know, to exemplify that, you know, we put ourselves out there giving out information that really we should be keeping safe. Another example is one of my daughters wanted to sell things on Etsy. And so we created an LLC to protect our identity.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they were asking for personal information, such as a social security number to link the LLC. And they're saying that this is to protect consumers out there. But I'm like, no, we're not doing that. So I think that there's an element of being careful about what information we are sharing, especially in this day and age.
Yep.
Where, you know, anybody can get a hold of that information, leverage it, exploit it. I do have one question for all of you. I just got this computer for my personal use, and it came with a free, like, 2-month membership for one of the antivirus. And I feel somewhat conflicted about that, because I think that the average consumer is getting squeezed by all of these things that we have to pay for, right? Whether that's insurance, skyrocketing, taxes for this, taxes for that. And now it seems like years ago, as long as you were safe and you didn't go into places you shouldn't go into, your risk of getting a virus on your computer was significantly low. And so I guess this is a question for all of you. Are you paying for antivirus software for your computers and phones? I saw that from my phone as well. And Aisha, I think I heard you.
Yeah. So I've had a subscription to, and look, I'm not shilling for Norton, to be clear. That's just the one that I use because they have so many. So at the time, my son was very little. So they had like child locks and blah, 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 and all kinds of stuff. And so I ended up going with Norton. And why I stayed with them is that one of the packages they offer is 10 devices. Well, I mean, we're a modern family. I have a cell phone. My son has a cell phone. My husband has a cell phone. My husband and I both have iPads. We all have computers. We have 10 devices in our house, and we split our Norton account with my parents. So we cover everybody's computers and everybody's phone at the bare minimum. And I have paid for some extra protections. I want to say just to be honest, I'm probably somewhere around $500 a year just on device protection. And you know what? I haven't been scammed in the last 5 years. I haven't had any viruses on my computer. I haven't had any malware. So given that the average amount of money that people get taken for anytime they get scammed is, it's creeping up into like the thousands of dollars per person. $500 a year versus maybe thousands of dollars in a one-time hit. It seems like it's worth it. I don't know. That's my perspective. Paul, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I use CrowdStrike for my devices, both my personal and my work devices. I'm not a fan of Norton or McAfee. CrowdStrike is the EDR platform. It's just like a newer type of antivirus, essentially. And I think that you have to have something in place. Now, not all platforms or antivirus is created equally. Some of them are 100% garbage. And there's just a big issue in general with there not being any kind of authorizing body that says what products are good and safe and which products are bad. Because a big part of why people get scammed in the United States as well is based off of the types of hardware and software you buy, whether it's at Walmart or even on Amazon. Google Play, the Apple Market, a lot of Steam. If you're a gamer, a lot of these platforms have scam products. So it's a lot of times it's about knowing what you're buying.
And if any of you guys are using Apple platforms, and I have a lot of Mac and iOS type experience, and I was once CompTIA Security Plus certified in networking and computer security. I think one of the most important things you can do is, if you're really worried you're a whistleblower or some kind of plaintiff or any kind of counsel for those groups, or your fraud examiner, and this includes the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, is turn on what's called lockdown mode if you're really worried. So one of the ways you can lose equipment is if they get into one device, like your computer, let's say, and these are all, in these, at least in these Apple systems, they're very integrated. You suddenly see this thing spread. So it can go into a text message, like I mentioned before, and then it'll spread to other computers or telephones. What you can do is turn on lockdown under privacy and security. And what lockdown does is it basically silos everything, and it prevents activation of a malware in those iMessages. So iMessage is another big issue in this Apple Macintosh system. I agree with Paul that generally the antivirus there, unlike the Android systems where it may make sense with Norton, is kind of minimalistic. You're probably not that great. I found one good product that can protect all your devices, and it does have a subscription, but like $100 a year. And that is what I found out from what the Comcast Xfinity techs, they're always a good sort. You know, what the guys in the industry, what are they doing to protect themselves? So they're all using, and I learned this the hard way because I bought this high-tech Fortinet, and even worse was Asus, real high-tech, you know, routers to protect myself. And the Asus was just, they hacked the Asus servers, if you can imagine that, to get in through the firmware to attack you. It's amazing, right? So how that's pretty uninspiring, to say the least. So what these guys use is the Netgear, and Netgear has like a little Netgear is just a very basic, well, not basic, it's actually pretty advanced consumer brand, but the highest end consumer brand of router. And what that'll do is it really, and I've been very impressed by the function of that for, you know, for $100 a year. It's a really nice annual subscription, and it really is pretty effective. I've been testing it out. It'll kill phishing scams like nobody's business. And those can really be hitting you. If you're on Facebook, Facebook is, by way of example, not very good about protecting its consumers and its users against zillions of these ads, which I would say a very sizable proportion are phishing scams. You know, it's horrible. It's again, these big companies now, just you have to wonder if we're really the clients or not. You know, the consumers are kind of where the prey. So it's like they're more interested in the guys paying them for the ads, and we're just kind of like, you know, the little fish that get eaten. So you have to be very careful. I've been very impressed so far with the Netgear, this particular model's Nighthawk. So that's just by way of saying you don't have to have malware on your devices, especially not the stuff that is after the fact. So like if it's going to block stuff like this router does for everything that's on my network, it stops it dead. If it comes off Facebook and it's a phishing scam, it'll just block it. That's it. But
Awesome.
after the fact, yeah, you're better off, in my opinion, if you know what you're doing. And again, I've been trained to do this. You're better off just getting a Chat GPT and going in, and you can take out the malware yourself, you know, for $20 a month. I mean, you get a Chat GPT to do a million things. So that's what I would recommend for Apple users.
All right. Well, we are at time right now. I want to thank everybody for attending. I want to thank Aisha. Aisha, did you want the last word?
Sure. When have I ever not taken the last word when I've had that opportunity? Come on now. I would just say, first of all, thanks for having me. Really happy to be here with you guys tonight. And if there's ever anything I can do to help you or support you in this area, please don't hesitate to reach out. My contact information is on the slides, and I'll make sure that Paul has that to share out with you all.
All righty. Thank you again, Aisha, and everybody have a good rest of your evening.
Good
Goodbye.
night.
Thank you guys. Have
Thank
a good
you.
night.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Thanks,
Right.
Aisha. You were amazing.
Oh, thank you. Good night, you guys. Take care.
Good night.